The Northern Line is unique in having two main routes through the centre of the capital. One via the city and the other, splitting at Kennington, runs via Charing Cross and Tottenham Court Road to join up again at Camden Town, where trains head alternately for Edgware or, in our case, High Barnet. Our journey begins at Kennington, which opened in 1890 on the City and South London Railway, the very first tube railway in the world. We're on board a train of brand new 1995 stock, heading in a southbound direction on the former Hampstead line to enable us to sample the Kennington reversing loop. The new trains mark the final elimination of the job of guard on the Underground. The driver has an onboard video screen to assist with the safe closing of the doors. A complex of junctions enables trains from either City or West End branches to continue towards Morden. The line to our right would take us onto the Morden line or into the reversing siding, which can be used by trains on either branch. This loop, however, which falls steeply away, can only be reached from the West End. The loop was opened along with the extension of the then Hampstead line from Embankment in 1926. Kennington, by this time, had been served exclusively for 36 years by the CSLR, which occupied the central position. The two tracks of the extension ran to either side of the existing alignment to allow cross-platform interchange, but in order to enable trains from the West End to turn round, they'd have to cross the city lines. The answer was this loop, which not only passes beneath the Morden line, but makes for a faster reversal, with the train crew not having to change ends. Trains can easily be held in the loop out of sight, awaiting their correct path in the timetable. Power, braking and dead man's handle are all built into the one controller. The line from Morden joins from the right. Platform 1 is for the West End branch only, while the adjacent Platform 3 provides same-level interchange with the City branch. At nearly 1¼ miles in length, the section between Kennington and Waterloo is exceptionally long. It's also where the London Underground reaches its maximum depth below sea level, 70 feet. The Hampstead Tube, as it was known, was originally built by the Underground Electric Railway Limited, a company formed in 1902 by the American Charles Tyson Yerkes upon acquisition and amalgamation of the District, Piccadilly and Bakerloo railways. Waterloo, with its Northern, Bakerloo and Waterloo and City lines, is the 6th busiest on the Underground. The new Jubilee line adds a further dimension. The line now passes beneath the River Thames. Incidentally, there are no operational floodgates on the Northern Line. The northbound platform at Embankment is on an exceptionally severe curve. This is part of the former reversing loop, dating from when Charing Cross, as it was originally called, was the terminus from 1914 to 1926.
Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the gap.
The distance between stations here is the shortest on the Northern Line. This is today's Charing Cross station. For over 50 years it was called Strand. It was the first terminus of what was at first called the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway. It ran from here to Golders Green, with a branch from Camden Town to Archway. It opened on the 22nd of June 1907 and was more simply known as the Hampstead Tube. Although the City and South London Railway was absorbed by the Underground Electric Group in 1913, both the Hampstead and City and South London lines retained their individual identities until August 1937, when they combined to become the Northern Line. For safety reasons, marker boards have been installed at all stations denoting where the new driver-only trains should stop. Stopping outside of the arrows disables the passenger doors. Tottenham Court Road was originally known as Oxford Street and is a busy interchange with the Central Line. Conversely, Goodge Street was called Tottenham Court Road for the first year of opening in 1907. Warren Street first opened as Euston Road. The Victoria Line opened here in 1968. The blue numbered boards indicate train lengths. Should the passenger alarm be activated while the train is still within the station area, the boards tell the driver how many carriages are still in the platform, and he can decide whether to stop or move on to the next station. The 1995 stock trains are just one part of London Underground's £1 billion 20-year modernisation of the Northern Line. During this time, the line's infrastructure is being thoroughly updated. Whole sections of rails are being replaced, tunnels strengthened, and new electric substations built. There are also plans to work on the line's signalling system, enabling the provision of a more regular service and faster journey times, especially at peak times. Euston is where we meet up once again with the city branch of the Northern, although there's no rail connection here. It's near here that the Northern and Victoria lines are controlled from the Coburg Street signalling centre. A total of 106 new trains were ordered from Alstom, and as part of the deal signed in 1995, also provided for their maintenance at Golders Green and Morden depots, along with taking over the maintenance of the outgoing 1959 stock. Mornington Crescent only has platforms on the West End branch. Passengers for the city have to change at Euston. The station was closed for 6 years from 1992 for total refurbishment. Now we approach Camden Town, the crew of the Northern Line, where all services converge on the 4 platforms. Trains bound for Edgware branch off here. Work on the complex series of junctions to enable the Hampstead Line to join up with the City and South London began in 1922, financed by the government. And here's the incoming connection from the City branch.
pass message. Can you give me the leading car number, please? Five 1638. Yeah, got it northbound, southbound, you know? Northbound, you say, yeah? Right, you've lost your traction control, you say?
The underground remains of South Kentish Town Station, which closed in 1924, unable to generate sufficient revenue.
Cross speed, okay, and you've got half mileage, you confirm, yeah? Thank you.
Kentish Town itself was much better sited and today provides interchange with Thameslink cross-London trains. The station is still largely in its 1907 condition. This is Tufnell Park. In 1908, some trains ran through here without stopping when the Underground Group introduced non-stopping services between Highgate and Camden Town. Experimentation and development saw this peak-hour trial extended to all day, with alternate trains non-stopping at alternate stations. These also involved Warren Street, Euston and Mornington Crescent. In 1913, the CSLR, not to be outdone, adopted a more complicated scheme whereby stations were paired. So, for example, trains which ran non-stop through City Road would also run through Kennington. This was where a scissors crossover was located when Archway was the northern terminus of the branch for 22 years. Originally opened as Highgate, the station was reconstructed in 1931, and amongst various improvements, the lifts were replaced by escalators.
30.
As usual for an underground terminus, the running tunnels had continued beyond the platforms. With the 1940 extension to High Barnet, the southbound tunnel became a centre reversing siding. At Highgate, the platforms were built to accommodate 9-car trains. These were a feature of the Northern Line in the late 1930s to tackle the increasing problem of overcrowding. As the station's underground could only accommodate 7 cars, the solution was to allocate the rear 2 cars of a 9-car train to people travelling exclusively to and from Tottenham Court Road. Passengers would board at Highgate or Golders Green on the extended platforms and then have a relatively undisturbed journey to the West End, with the rear 2 cars actually stopping in the tunnels at intermediate stations. Only at Tottenham Court Road would the rear 2 cars enter the station and the passengers would alight. The 9-car train would then continue with the rear 2 cars out of passenger use. Daylight beckons, and the line now climbs into the open, up a gradient as steep as 1 in 50 to join the formation of the former London and North Eastern Railway from King's Cross. At 17¼ miles from Morden via Bank, this marks the end of one of the longest continuous railway tunnels in the world. The classic station at East Finchley was designed by Adams, Holden and Pearson for the proposed extension of the Northern Line's Moorgate branch from Finsbury Park. With the outbreak of the Second World War, the scheme never came to fruition, and the two inner platform roads became redundant, although the lines are still used to and from Highgate Depot, which nowadays is used only for train stabling. East Finchley is a train crew depot, and we have a change of driver. Tube trains started running here in July 1939, connecting with the steam trains from King's Cross to Barnet and Edgware. Electrification to High Barnet and the extension of the Northern Line trains there followed in April 1940. Steam trains continued to run to King's Cross, Moorgate and Broad Street for a further year. Steam-hauled goods traffic continued to play a part in the life of the tube line for 20 years, the steam engines being fitted with tripcocks to conform to standard underground signalling practice. They were also limited to 20 miles an hour to match the stopping distances of the electric trains.
For your message. For your message. For your message.
Finchley Central, the junction with the Mill Hill East branch, more of which later. The existing island platform was rebuilt for the start of the tube services in 1940. The station had previously been called Finchley Church End.
Right, yeah. Yeah, in the middle of East Finchley, what's the car number there?
Mind for now. This station is Finchley Central. Change platform Mill Hill East. This train terminates at High Barnet.
With the Mill Hill East branch continuing ahead, the main line turns a full 90 degrees to the northeast.
Parking message 104.
pass a veteran train of 1959 stock in its last few months of operation. Strangely, Finchley West is actually further east than Finchley Central. The stations from here to High Barnet are little changed from LNER days, the main differences being the London Transport roundels and platform height alterations. No fewer than 2 signal boxes are still standing at Woodside Park. You can just see the second opposite the former goods yard. Along with those at High Barnet, Totteridge, Finchley Central and East Finchley, Woodside Park goods remained in use well into Northern Line days, closing in 1962, diesel having briefly replaced steam in the final year. Totteridge lies to the west of Dollis Brook and Whetstone to the east.
This station is Totteridge and Whetstone. This train terminates at High Barnet.
In 1982, single-line working had to be implemented here following slippage of the embankment. It was 8 weeks before near-normal working could be resumed, but the southbound platform and buildings were out of action for a full year. Every train we pass should be heading alternately for the West End or City branches, as do those from Edgware. However, while most City branch trains continue to Morden, most West End trains terminate at Kennington, partly due to the ease of reversing in the Kennington loop. Although typically there are up to 24 trains an hour, in 1912 the Hampstead line achieved a record frequency of 44 trains per hour. This has never been equalled or surpassed by any other British railway.
Your message. I've been given a little score log, but thanks for that. Thanks.
We're now arriving at High Barnet's platform 2. Here too, the signal box still survives, as does the former booking hall on platform 1, now used as offices by the engineers. Train crews get a brief respite here of anything up to 15 minutes, although 5 is the average. The new ticket hall, sited at footbridge level, cuts down on the long trek up to Barnet High Street. We couldn't finish our journey on the Northern Line without a driver's eye view of the Mill Hill East branch. Trace our steps back to Finchley Central and Platform 3.
Change here for High Barnet. This train terminates at Mill Hill East.
The single line is just under 1 mile in length and was electrified in 1941 to cater for the increase in wartime traffic to and from Mill Hill Barracks. The line was built by the Great Northern Railway and continued via Mill Hill, the Hale, to Edgware. As part of the New Works programme of 1935, the line was due to be doubled and electrified to meet up with the Edgware branch. The combined tube line was then projected forwards to Bushy Heath via Elstree, and work was well underway when interrupted by the Second World War. Tighter green belt legislation that followed saw all these new works abandoned, leaving Edgware as the terminus and Mill Hill East serving an outlying area of low housing density. Brook Viaduct, at 60 feet above ground, is the highest elevation on the whole London Underground. The train service over the branch consists of a maximum of 5 trains an hour, 7 days a week. Although clearly of double-line infrastructure, the double line was never actually laid, and there was never a second platform. Steam-hauled freight trains continued to run beyond Mill Hill East up until May 1964. There were no signals, the line being worked on the one-engine-in-steam principle.
Mind the gap. This station is Mill Hill East. This train terminates here. All change, please.
The rails were taken up in the second half of 1964, and the track bed has now been built over.